Hi there, it's Raina. So this video is 7 awesome things about Scorpio. I hope I didn't use the word the 7 things, because it's not going to be limited to 7 things, obviously. That's why I'm being very specific. And the other thing is that it doesn't have to be just the sun in Scorpio. So any of the personal points like the moon, the rising sign, also called the ascendant, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And so Scorpio is a fixed water sign. And it was funny. I just, I have like kind of the template where I say 7 awesome things about so-and-so, and then I fill in the blank, type it in. And sometimes it's very easy to just like think of attributes. And for Scorpio, I did do it very quickly, but it still kind of was like, okay, now what do I say? Because Scorpio is one of those signs, I think, out of all of the signs of the zodiac, that people are a little trepidatious about, right? Because Scorpio, what's the first thing that people say about Scorpion? Oh, can I call them scorpions? Scorpios. That they are intense. That's the go-to cliche. And so sometimes with Scorpio, there can be this sense of a personality that can be difficult. And the reason for this, I believe overall, is because Scorpio tends to be very, you could say mysterious, but secretive does also come to mind. Protective about their own personal information, feelings, etc. And therefore, it's hard to get to know them sometimes. When you don't really know someone very well, you're only going by the surface attributes, and that can lead to a lack of sympathy for that person because you're making assumptions based upon the very little that they put out there. So I think that that may be one of the reasons why Scorpios are misunderstood or feared by other people sometimes, in terms of how they're going to act or how they do act. But anyway, let me talk about some of the wonderful things that are associated with the sign of Scorpio. Number 1, fierce in a good way. So I have to start on that level. Intense, gravitas. Now, intensity is something that some people dislike, especially if you're a Gemini, especially if you're an Aquarius. You're going to shy away from somebody who is like too intense. However, the flip side of the person who is, I was going to make the joke about Glenn Close and Fatal Attraction. I didn't want to do that. But I mean, what I'm saying is the person who is intense or obsessive, which is a trait of Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, that, you know, a shadow aspect, obviously, but in a good way, a Scorpio person can give off a sense of depth to them. The 8th house deals with what's underneath the surface, and Scorpio people dislike small talk and anything shallow, and so this gives them gravitas. This gives them a certain heft to their persona, their being, where other people come off as a little bit too wifty, a little bit too, you know, superficial, for lack of a better word, you know. And I think that people who are more well-developed spiritually appreciate those people who kind of engage with life in a more meaningful way. And I think that that's true for the Scorpio people who are positive-minded. Number 2, devoted. So Scorpio is a fixed water sign, and given that, we're talking about with water, the emotions, and there's any fixed sign, so the other fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, are going to have similar tendencies, but because Scorpio is an element of water, it's the emotions that are really stable in that sense, and they don't waver. So a Scorpio person has very pronounced likes and dislikes usually, and they're not going to be very fickle. I mean, even a sign like Cancer, which is a water sign, can be very changeable mood-wise, or Gemini can change what they like and dislike at a drop of a hat. But Scorpio is pretty stable in that regard. And so if they dislike something today, chances are they'll dislike it tomorrow, and same with love. They love very deeply. And this is one of the reasons why when things get too out of control, we do talk about the obsessive quality, because it's very hard for them just to move on. If they love someone, they're like, well, this person is the center of my universe. What are you talking about? Move on? How can I move on from that? It just doesn't make sense to them that you can just go from one intense love of your life to the next. It doesn't work that way for them. But the higher-minded Scorpios are going to, if they love deeply, they still will make a point of, detaching at some point. Number 3, they know who they are. You get, and this goes back to that gravitas, where you have somebody who is really, I think, pretty confident. I could have put that down too. That Scorpio people tend to be very confident. And there's not that sense of insecurity that you associate with a lot of other signs, where they are kind of wondering who they really are, if they're just trying to please other people. Scorpios tend to live for themselves in a lot of ways. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Scorpios cannot sacrifice for a person that they love. They could surely do that. But I'm talking about how they present themselves. They don't really care what people think about them. So they're not going to alter their style in order to appease somebody else the way a Libra person might do. They are almost defiant in that way. Remember, the 2 planets that rule Scorpio are Pluto and Mars. And Mars is the god of war. So with Mars, there's always that kind of defiance. And with Pluto, there is a sense of power that is desired. And Scorpio inherently knows that if they are too dependent on the opinions of others, they are weak. They lose their power. So they have to be able to accept whatever other people think of them without needing to change it in order to feel that sense, and because they want to feel that sense of power. Okay, number 4 is magnetic. I want to just go back to what I just said about knowing who they are, because if you're somebody who's involved with a Scorpio, this can be a refreshing thing where you feel like the person, is who they say that they are. They may not tell you everything about themselves. They may be a little bit secretive, but everything they do show of themselves will be who they are. And other people may put on an act, and they're very conscious of the fact they are putting on an act. So getting back to number 4 of magnetic, we're talking about someone who is, it's kind of indefinable, but they have this certain aura that lures people in that is very, attractive. That's what attracting people to you is. It doesn't mean a certain look, you don't have to be classically beautiful to be attractive and to actually bring people towards you. And that's kind of a powerful trait. And I think that Scorpios are very magnetic to romantic partners because they do exude a certain sense of confidence and the ability to love deeply. People who are not looking for a lightweight love affair may naturally gravitate towards Scorpio because they feel like there's something there. They feel like there is this depth to them, and that is very magnetic. Scorpios may have very hypnotizing eyes in particular, but if you have Scorpio rising, it may be like a double-edged sword where you make some people uncomfortable with your presence, but others, they just like fall into your trap, if you will, very easily. So definitely an aware Scorpio woman can be an easy femme fatale. Number 5, psychic. They're psychic. And I put bullshit detector, and I apologize for the profanity, but there's sometimes when it is just perfect. And this is because Scorpio is very, just being a water sign, they're very capable of intuiting who is telling the truth. But I think it's that Pluto part of it where they dig below the surface. They make natural detectives, and they can sense when somebody's being insincere, when someone is lying, straight up lying. And actually, this is something that can turn on Scorpios who are not at their best, because it can lead to paranoia. So it always has to be kept at the high level, where the Scorpio person understands that the idea of, uncovering people's untruths is in order to protect yourself, but you don't want to take it to the extreme where you're trying to prove that somebody is not a good person. You're just trying to do it so that you can know exactly where you stand with somebody else. So it serves a practical purpose. But yeah, this can come in very handy if the Scorpio is dealing with a child, because they can see when the child is lying. So number 6 is healing. There may be healing abilities about Scorpio in many different ways. Maybe even just their laying on of hands. They could, Pluto is a healing force. And so they may be interested, you may be interested in Reiki medicine, energy medicine, Reiki and shamanic healing. And there can be a tendency to want to help others to become the best they can be, because this is Pluto, the idea of transformation. And there's a healing aspect to Pluto's influence. And so Scorpios naturally gravitate towards anything that, an opportunity to help to heal. And number 7, capable of reinventing themselves. So this kind of is an extension of number 6. Now, the idea of transformation, the possibilities. Some people give up on their, the ability to improve their lives, especially if they feel that they have sunk very low, if they are in a real bind. And the Scorpio person knows that they have what it takes to totally change themselves from top to bottom. And it's interesting, because Scorpio is a fixed water sign, that they would even have these notions. But it is because of that Pluto influence. And as a result, never count out a Scorpio. Even if they seem like they have fallen by the wayside, they can come back with a vengeance and really be a successful person, have a good life, do great things, and all because they believed in themselves and they took the appropriate action. Scorpio, through Pluto, is capable of great discipline, and it really does help them to heal and to transform, and also to encourage others to do the same. So that is really wonderful. So the last two traits specifically may be associated with spiritual pursuits. Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you like this style, please check out my personal readings. You can find me at rainandmoonastrology.com. The link is below. Otherwise, take care. Bye.